Right. Welcome everybody to the Way of Life Big Book Study. I'm Dave, and I'm a recovered alcoholic.
Hi, Dave. My name's Vlad.
Hi, so we're going to stand for a moment of silence, followed quickly by the Serenity Prayer. Thanks, guys. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you. And I asked Calvin, to please read the preamble.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Calvin. I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic.
Hi, Calvin.
Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety.
Thanks, Calvin.
Thanks, Calvin. And I asked Trish to please read the set-aside prayer.
Hi, my name is Patricia. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Patricia.
Set-aside prayer. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, the 12 steps, this book, the meetings, my disease, and you, God, so I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please let me see the truth.
Thanks, Patricia.
So at this meeting, myself and Blythe are going to read and explain the first portion of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. That is our program. There will be time at the end of the meeting for questions and discussion. There's paper and pens and highlighters and all that stuff. So we're going to get started where we left off on doctor's opinion.
So if you have the small book, it's page XXVII. And if you have the large hardcover book, it's page XXX. You're on the right page if the first line at the top says important appointment was not met. So we've kind of covered a bit of ground in the first few weeks to get up to this point. We went over the title page that this is the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. And we talked about, our story versus the story of the first 100, how we have this common problem, right? And the common solution and the common course of action that if I did what they did, I'm going to get what they got, which is recovery from alcoholism. We talked about the difference between the fellowship and the program, how it's two separate entities. And the program is outlined in the first portion of this book. And we got into the doctor's opinion, where we really started to talk about our illness, and particularly the first symptom of our illness, that I have this abnormal reaction to alcohol, right? That when I consume alcohol, when I put alcohol in my body, I have a reaction, an abnormal reaction that most people do not have, which is that I want more when I start, right? Your average person who does not have alcoholism does not want more when they drink, right? They can have one or two and pay the bill and go home, and that's just not me, right? But so we start to break down that allergy, and in closing where we left off, the last paragraph says, all these and many others have one symptom in common: they cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. This phenomenon, as we have suggested, may be the manifestation of an allergy which differentiates these people and sets them apart as a distinct entity. It has never been, by any treatment with which we are familiar, permanently eradicated. The only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. So there's a couple things in here, right? They call it an allergy, right? And as far as I know, you can't think your way out of an allergy or try to change your behavior around an allergy, right? It's an allergy. If I'm allergic to bees and I get stung, I swell up. So if I'm allergic to alcohol, when I consume alcohol, I want more, right? And there's no way around that, right? and it's never eradicated, right? Like I may be a recovered alcoholic, but I'll always have this allergy with me, right? It says that the only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. That's the problem, isn't it? Right? That's the outlying issue where I can't stay sober on my own power, right? Like this is where this second symptom, this malady that we talk about, really takes place, right? Is my inability to stay away from it. But that's where we're going to start. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and also we see a distinction between the normal average temperate drinker and us. Normal people, we'll call them, don't have this allergy. They can have one or two and leave it alone, which if you suffer from alcoholism is not possible because of this allergy, right? So we start to see a difference between us and them.
Yeah, so it says the only relief we have to suggest is entire abstinence. So just don't drink, right? Just don't drink. That's our solution.
And
that is, really that is the solution. But applying that solution is a whole different ballgame, right?
Yeah,
I don't have the ability to do that, right?
Yeah,
because of the second
the
symptom.
Second symptom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this immediately precipitates us into a seething cauldron of debate.
A very hot pot.
Much is being written pro and con, but among physicians, the general opinion seems to be that most chronic alcoholics are doomed.
Right? And we're not doomed because of that allergy, right? We're doomed because of our inability to stay away from it. It's that second symptom that dooms us, right?
What is the solution?
Anytime the big book asks a question, it's going to answer it. It's not up to you. We're not asking you. Not asking me either, because I don't know how to stay sober. So yeah.
No, it's presenting the question. They're presenting this question and they're going to answer it. Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought to me to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He had but partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage and seemed to be a case of pathological mental deterioration.
This guy's not doing good.
He had lost everything worthwhile in life and was only living, one might say, to drink. He frankly admitted and believed that for him there was no hope. Following the elimination of alcohol, there was found to be no permanent brain injury. He accepted the plan outlined in this book. 1 year later, he called to see me, and I experienced a very strange sensation.
Right, so here was this guy who had no hope, right? He continued to drink and continued to drink. And obviously he had tried to stop, because if he hadn't, then he would still have hope, right? But he had tried to stop and couldn't because he had no hope. And then it says he accepted the plan outlined in this book. Here we go.
Yeah, so and he called him a year later. I knew the man by name and partly recognized his features, but there all resemblance ended. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged a man brimming over with self-confidence or reliance and contentment. I talked with him for some time, but was not able to bring myself to feel that I had known him before. To me, he was a stranger, and so he left me. A long time has passed with no return to alcohol.
Right, so there's your hope, right?
When I need a mental uplift, I often think of another case brought in by a physician prominent in New York. The patient had made his own diagnoses and, deciding his situation hopeless, had hidden in a deserted barn, determined to die.
Right, once again, the situation hopeless because of the fact that he can't stop and stay sober, right?
Self-pity, maybe?
Self-pity, maybe, right? I'm going to the barn to die.
I'm going to, nobody loves me. He was rescued by a searching party and in desperate condition brought to me. Following his physical rehabilitation, he had a talk with me in which he frankly stated he thought the treatment a waste of effort, unless I could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he would have the willpower, finger air quotes, willpower, to resist the impulse to drink.
Right. Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't give us the willpower to stop drinking, right? It's not about willpower. We have an illness, right? And we have a solution to that illness, but it's got nothing to do with willpower. And willpower, it's never worked for me, that's for sure.
No, and there's a reason that no one, it says here, could assure him, which no one ever had, that in the future he'd have the willpower. No one's ever assured him of that because we can't do that. Willpower is not, it's not ever going to be our solution, right? So no one's ever done it because it's not a promise we can make. His alcoholic problem was so complex and his depression so great that we felt his only hope would be through what we then called moral psychology. And we doubted even that would have any effect.
So like moral psychology, right? I always knew the difference between right and wrong. I just kind of leaned this way naturally, right? So moral psychology is an attempt to kind of clean that stuff up.
Yeah, I blatantly ignored the fact that I shouldn't be doing what I was doing because I needed to, right? So the moral psychology is to kind of like bring you back to, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that. However, he did become sold on the ideas contained in this book. He has not had a drink for a great many years. I see him now and then, and he is as fine a specimen of manhood as one could wish to meet.
Right, and we didn't give him the willpower to not drink, right? We offered our solution, right?
And you followed this course of action. I earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book through and through. Perhaps he came to scoff. He may remain to pray.
So William D. Silkworth, once again, for those who were here last week, this is the chief physician at a nationally prominent hospital specializing in drug and alcohol addiction, like third largest hospital in the country. So this isn't your average neighborhood doctor. This is like the doctor when it comes to alcohol and drug addiction. And he just said that earnestly advise every alcoholic to read this book. And though perhaps it came to scoff, he may remain to pray, right? That's the chief doctor, big doctor saying, hey man, you better start looking up.
I like that part.
Looking inside.
Though perhaps he may come to scoff, because when I first started this process, I'm like, this isn't going to work. There's no way this is going to work, right? And here I am. Okay, so that's it. That's the great doctor's opinion.
So really, without the doctor's opinion, we wouldn't know about our illness, right? He really laid out our illness for us, and we call him things like a medical saint. All these ideas, without Dr. Silkworth's piece in this book, we'd never be where we are today, right? So very grateful for that guy.
He was kind of the first guy that also insisted we need to press upon the illness to the alcoholic before we give him the solution, right? We need to realize how screwed we are before we're going to look at it. And they talk about that in Bill's story, actually, so I kind of buried the lead there. But
it was really easy for me to say, yeah, I'm powerless, right? I got a problem with alcohol and drugs.
Yeah.
But I never understood the grasp of the problem, right? Yeah. Like he really described this thing as that we're going to die if we don't do something about this, right?
Yeah. Like I'm an alcoholic because I drink too much, which is totally true, but there's a lot more to it than that, right? I drink too much, and the other piece is I'm not going to stop until I die or I get the solution that's in this book.
All right, so we're going to start on Bill's story. Bill's our co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this is his story.
Yeah, so we're on page 1.
A couple things about this story is that it's kind of Bill's like what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, and you'll just see all kinds of traces of the steps as we progress through this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we knew. I can't see that word. Does that say new? It says new. Young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned, and we were flattered when the first citizens took us to their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments sublime with intervals hilarious. I was part of life at last. And in the midst of the excitement, I discovered liquor.
So this was just pre-World War I, and everybody was getting together and saying, oh, you're going over there, like, great job, you guys, thanks, guys, right, protecting our country, right? And this is where he discovered liquor.
Yeah, they mobilized and sent them all over to England, where they, shared houses with the English while they waited to go to war. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudice of my people concerning drink. In time we sailed for over there. I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol.
Right, so over there being overseas for World War I, and then I was very lonely and again turned to alcohol. You guys ever do that?
We landed in England. I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved, I wandered outside. My attention was caught by a doggerel. on an old tombstone. Here lies the Hampshire grenadier who caught his death drinking cold small beer. A good soldier is near forgot whether he dieth by musket or by pot. Ominous warning, which I failed to heed.
I always knew that alcohol and drugs were like not good for me, right? I always knew that it was kind of like I was always pushing that limit, right? I saw people experience really bad things as a result of drugs and alcohol, right? And I knew that there was an area there where I shouldn't enter into, right?
22, and a veteran of foreign wars, I went home at last. I fancied myself a leader, for had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation, my talent for leadership, I imagined, would place me at the head of vast enterprises which I would manage with the utmost assurance.
Bill has a bit of an ego, right? He really does. But he's also 22 years old. Like, I remember when I was 22, I really thought I was going to take on the world, right? And he's like, a picture that I would place at the head of vast enterprises, right? I bet you AA wasn't what he was thinking about, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, there's a lot of I's in the next few pages. I took a night law course and obtained employment as investigator for a surety company. The drive for success was on. I proved to the world I was important. My work took me about Wall Street, and little by little I became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? I studied economics and business as well as law. Potential alcoholic that I was, I nearly failed my law course.
So Bill's story really talks about the progression of the illness, right? He's at this potential alcoholic phase right now, right? Carry on.
At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife. We had long talks when I would still her forebodings by telling her that men of genius conceived their best projects when drunk.
Right, so he would calm her down, right? Still her fears, right? It's okay, honey, it's not that bad. Like, Einstein was a drunk, look what he did.
That the most majestic constructions of philosophic thought were so derived. By the time I had completed the course, I knew the law was not for me. The inviting maelstream of Wall Street had me in its grip. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that one day would turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons.
Huge statement, right? He commenced to forge the weapon, right? Alcoholism, right? We do this to ourselves, right? We drink to a certain point where we can't stop anymore, right? We develop this malady over a period of time, right? It's not that I was born with this thing, right? I commenced to forge the weapon, right?
Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000.
It's a lot of money in 1920.
I went into certain securities, then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would someday have a great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and managements, but my wife and I decided to go anyways. I developed a theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance of markets. I discovered many more reasons later on.
So his idea here is to go over factories and managements. He's reporting back to Wall Street. He's like, okay, well, if you guys want to invest money in, say, General Electric, let me go to their warehouses and see what their staffing is like, see what their warehouses are like, and then report back. That was his idea. That's how he made his bucks. Carry on.
We gave up our positions, and off we roared on a motorcycle, the sidecar stuffed with tent blankets, a change of clothes, and 3 huge volumes of financial reference service. Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed.
Bill, you're crazy.
Perhaps they were right.
Doesn't make him an alcoholic, though.
I had had some success in speculation, so we had a little money. But we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on a small capital. That was the last honest manual labor on my part for many a day. We covered the whole eastern United States in a year. At the end of it, my reports to Wall Street procured me a position there and the use of a large expense account. The exercise of an option brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s for that year. For the next few years, fortune threw money and applause my way. I had arrived.
So when Bill was at his peak, he was worth $500,000. And that's a lot of money back then. Like, that's multi-millions of dollars, right? And I love this statement, right? I had arrived, right? He's got the money, he's got everything's just adding up for him, man.
Ron, where did you find that figure?
I can get back to you at the end of the meeting about that. Yeah.
My judgment and ideas were followed by many to the tune of paper millions. The great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part of my life. There was loud talk in the jazz places uptown.
Right, so he went from this potential alcoholic, right? Now it's taking an important and exhilarating part in his life. It's becoming more frequent. He's making money. He's drinking at the bars and the jazz clubs, right?
No consequences.
No consequences yet, right?
Good times. Everyone spent in thousands, shattered in millions. Scoffers could scoff and be damned. I made a host of fair-weathered friends.
So fair-weather friends are there when the weather's good, but when the weather goes sour, they're gone.
My drinking assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrances of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf.
I like how he makes it seem like it was his choice, right? I became a lone wolf. Realistically, his friends and family were like, hey, Bill, you got to go. Right?
Yeah, he's drinking all day and all night and is disgustingly drunk and no one wants to be around him.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, not me. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity, for loyalty to my wife helped at times by extreme drunkenness.
Right, so loyalty to his wife, like he would have cheated on her, but he couldn't because he was too drunk.
It's like playing pool with a rope. Kept me out of those scrapes.
I think it's funny how, like, you know, we place Bill up on this pedestal, right? But when you dig into his story, he's a real piece of work, right?
In 1929, I contracted Gulf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud while I started to overtake Tiger Woods.
Yeah, Walter Hagen was the Tiger Woods of the 1920s, right?
Liquor caught up with me much faster than I caught up behind Walter. I began to be jittery in the morning.
Right, more progression of the alcoholism, right?
Starting to get the shades. Gulf permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to caroom around the exclusive course which had inspired such awe in me as a lad. I acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amused skepticism.
Right, amused skepticism. The banker's like, okay, Bill, you're really that, and you keep doing this, bud, right?
This will never end.
Yeah, this is never going to end.
Abruptly, in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange.
This was a big deal, right? The stock market just went to shit.
Yeah, the depression, right?
Yeah.
After
Wall Street crash.
Yeah, Wall Street crash.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it was vicious, right? After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar into a broker's office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market closed.
A little late, Bill.
He doesn't even know this is happening yet. He's just hammered. The ticker still clattered. I was staring at an inch of tape which bore the inscription XYZ minus 32. It had been plus 52 that morning. I was finished, and so were my friends. The papers reported men jumping to death from the towers of high finance. That disgusted me. I wouldn't jump. I went back to the bar.
Right, we're just going to kill ourselves slowly.
Those sissies jumping out windows. I'm going to drink myself to death like a man. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow was another day. As I drank, the old fierce determination to win came back.
As I drank, the fierce determination came back. Right?
Getting some liquid courage.
Liquid courage, yeah.
Next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left and thought I had better go to Canada. By the following spring, we were living in our accustomed style. I felt like Napoleon returning from Elba. No St. Helena for me. But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend had to let me go. And this time, we stayed broke.
Right? Our drinking catches up with us, and our people are like, sorry, Bill, but go back to the States, man.
So we're starting to
You're not
see,
doing well in Canada, bud.
we're starting to see some consequences from this drinking, right? It happens slowly and it builds gradually, right? So this time he stayed broke, right? We went to live with my wife's parents.
So in the 1920s or 1930s, if you lived with your wife's parents, that was like not acceptable,
Super degrading
right?
and just like taboo, for lack of a better word. So he found a job and then lost it as the result of a brawl with a taxi driver.
Yeah, so Bill, you're not doing so good anymore, bud. Right?
Yeah.
Like he's starting to bottom out a little bit.
So when they say like look for yourself in Bill's story, I literally did this in Vancouver. I got arrested because I punched out an Uber driver and I lost my job. So that wasn't. I identified with him pretty easily there. Oh Lord. Mercifully, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years or hardly draw a sober breath.
Right, now he's on her.
My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. So now he's living at his wife's parents' house and his wife is working. That was just like so demasculating back then.
The people at the department store are like, yeah, you're still with Bill? Right? Why are you with that guy?
Yeah.
Right?
I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places.
Right, so he'd try to go to his old buddies and, try to make
He's
deals and
gonna
stuff.
buy the stock, okay?
They're like, get out of here, man. Get out of here, man.
Get lost. But you can't just buy it. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity.
It just got real.
Yeah. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day, often 3, got to be routine.
Right, so he's making bathtub gin because it's prohibition, right?
Yeah. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s, and I would pay off my bills at the delicatessens, bars, and dope dealers. This went on endlessly, and I began to waken very early in the morning, shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin, followed by half a dozen bottles of beer, would be required if I were to eat any breakfast.
Right, so he's really in it. He's drinking all day, every day.
Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation.
Right, so top of the paragraph it said it became a necessity. Right, I have to drink. And now he's saying, I still thought I could control the situation. Right? That's that obsession that we talk about, right? That somehow, someday, I can beat this thing. That I can stop on my own power. Right?
And there were periods of sobriety which renewed my wife's hope.
Or control and enjoy my drinking, right?
Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died. My wife and father-in-law became ill. Then I got a promising business opportunity.
All right, back at it, right, Bill? You got this now, right?
Stocks were at a low point in 32, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Then I went on a prodigious bender, and that chance vanished.
Right, now we're getting some consequences. More consequences. Like the consequences are starting to pile up.
Yeah. And we really see that malady here. Right? All he has to do is not get drunk for a couple of days and he can't do it. And then the allergy kicks in and he goes on a bender and he loses this opportunity. Kind of like me getting a new job, going to celebrate and then not making it to the interview the next day. Okay. What time we got here?
Keep going.
Okay. I woke up. This had to be stopped.
It has to be stopped.
I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business. And so I did.
So does Bill want to stop drinking? Right? Does he have desire to stop drinking?
Right? So you emerged remorseful. It was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm done. I have to be done. Shortly afterward, I came home drunk.
Oh man, I thought he wanted to not drink.
Shit. There had been no fight.
Uh-oh.
Where had been my high resolve? I simply didn't know.
He's baffled.
It hadn't even come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that.
Right, so we talk about not having a mental defense, right? Someone pushed a drink his way. I can tell you, before I got into recovery, before I had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, if anyone ever slid a drink my way, I took it.
Renewing my resolve, I tried again.
So he's on his own, still trying? All right, here we go.
Some time passed, confidence began to be replaced by cocksuredness. Ever leave treatment and be like, yeah, I got this. No problem, I can laugh at the gin mills.
On the high horse, right?
Now I had what it takes. One day, I walked into a cafe to telephone. In no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how it happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I would manage better next time. But I might as well get good and drunk then. And I did.
Right, so does he want to stop? Yep. Can he stop? Nope.
The remorse, horror, hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was not there. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity.
Doom, right? A feeling of doom coming.
I hardly dared cross the street lest I collapse and be run down by an early morning truck. For it was scarcely daylight, and all-night police supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. My writhing nerves were stilled at last. A morning paper told me that the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. The market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? No, not now. Then a mental fog settled down. Gin would fix that. So 2 bottles and oblivion.
Mm-hmm.
The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms. For
Right,
mine
so
in
2 symptoms of alcoholism: mind and body, mind and body, mind and body.
So the mind and body are marvelous mechanisms. For mine endured this agony 2 more years. So he spun around in that cycle of addiction for 2 more years. Remember that. 2
Wanted
years.
to stop, right?
Yeah. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror and madness were on me. Again, I swayed dizzily before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, cursing myself for a weakling.
It's amazing how many suicides are as a result of bottomed out alcoholics, right?
There were flights from city to country and back as my wife and I sought escapes. We tried the relocation technique.
Yeah.
Right?
Move.
No, it's not me. It's my friends. I just got to get away from my friends in Port St. John,
right?
and I'll be
and
okay.
back, right? And back.
Yeah, and back. Yeah.
I gotta go back home.
Yeah, that's it, right? They sought escape. Then came the night when the physical and mental torture was so hellish I feared I would burst through my window, sash and all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to a lower floor lest I suddenly leap.
This is awesome, right? He's like, honey, I'm drinking. I might kill myself tonight. Might jump out that window. Can you please help me drag the mattress downstairs in case I do?
I'll sleep down here.
Wow,
or does he
right?
drag it to outside his window in case he jumps and lands on the mattress? A doctor came with a heavy sedative. So that's a good idea. Next day I found me drinking both gin and sedative.
That's a good example of that allergy, right? The phenomenon of craving, right? Anything that's near me and around me is mine.
This combination soon landed me on the rocks. People feared for my sanity, so did I. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. My brother-in-law is a physician, and through his kindness and that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital for the mental and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared, hydrotherapy and mild exercise helped much. Best of all, I met a kind doctor who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I'd been seriously ill, bodily, and mentally.
2 symptoms of alcoholism: body, mental, right? So this is Dr. Silkworth. This is the first time Bill went to treatment.
With Dr. Silkworth.
And Dr. Silkworth described alcoholism in his first treatment, right? About the body and the mind. So is information about step 1 enough to stay sober? Let's find out.
Yeah, so doctor explained you have an allergy to alcohol, right? And you suffer from this mental twist. Can't stay away from the first drink. It relieved me somewhat to learn that in alcoholics, the will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects.
Right, so Bill was a successful businessman, right? He could pretty much accomplish anything he wanted in life except stop drinking.
My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope.
Thanks for the information. I got this, right? See you guys.
So now he's just thinking, okay, so I just got to not drink. If you remember a couple of pages back, he already came to that conclusion. Did it work? No. But we're not terribly smart as alcoholics when we're in the grips of our addiction. I lost where. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high.
So this is a thing where they used to hang the biggest goose in the window, right? So the goose hung high. He's like, man, I'm doing good, right? The best.
Went to town regularly, even made a little money. Surely this was the answer, self-knowledge. But it was not, for the frightful day came when I drank once more.
Right? So self-knowledge didn't fix it. Knowledge about step 1 didn't fix it, right? Treatment didn't fix it.
The curve of my decline, moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump.
And you went...
After a time, I returned to the hospital. This was the finish. The curtain, it seemed to me. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during DTs, or I would develop a wet brain.
Permanent brain injury, right?
Perhaps within a year. She would soon have to give me over to the undertaker or the asylum. They did not need to tell me, I knew, and almost welcomed the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride.
Right? His ego's gone now.
I, who had thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining that endless procession of thoughts who had gone on before.
Right? We talk about that progression of alcoholism, right? This sentence, the endless procession of thoughts who've gone on before. When I watched the movie, My Name is Bill, it shows him like walking out in the streets with a bunch of just rummies, and he's got puke on himself. He's like, yeah. That's what I picture when I hear that sentence, right?
Yeah, and what he means is like he's just gonna end up dead or in the loony bin with a lobotomy, like that, because that was the solution prior to this book, right? I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What would I not give to make amends? But that was all over now. No words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master.
So, alcohol was my master. Does that sound like powerlessness? Right?
Yeah.
So he can't keep himself sober. That's what makes him powerless. Right?
So that's kind of a step 1 experience.
That's it. He's having a step 1 experience, right? He's like, I'm fucked.
So
Screwed.
I think we'll call it there because that's 7:40.
Yeah.
It's a good place to leave it. Alcohol is my master.
Yeah. John, would you like to open us up?
Sure, John Alcoholic.
Hey, John.
Good to be here. Lots of cover.